Well, I have just come in from the barley field. I've had my shower. My hair's a little wet, but it's all good. I'm going to share with you a video that I took out in the barley field. I did a lot of inspecting, but I'm going to, actually there's 4 fields I looked at today, and they're all right there in that Bet Shean area. But I'm going to show you the end of the field that I believe is, for me, this end of this field is acceptable. I'm playing with a little grain of barley here. It's actually, some of it was shattering and going into my socks, which is a good sign that it could do that. For me, the bottom line is I stood in that field and I looked at it from, just like, how did they do that? How would they use what I'm looking at? Is it acceptable? And what is the best timing for what I'm looking at? So the field is actually kind of long and maybe a little narrow, not so narrow, but it's not like a huge agricultural field of domestic wheat like you see in Nebraska or Kansas or whatever. Of course, we don't have fields nearly that size, but it's a very decent sized field of wild barley. It had at one time been probably sown in domestic barley, because I saw a few heads of 4-row barley in there, and I did see a few volunteers of actually several of domestic wheat, probably from previous plantings of previous years. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, this was something that grew on its own this year. But the nice thing about what I'm telling you, that it had been previously sown, it's that the soil itself was not rocky. There was no debris. None of that stuff existed in this field. 2 years in a row now he's done that for us. Last year's field had previously been domestic, and the soil underneath the barley was beautiful and it was even. And basically we're seeing the same thing here. I think there was one area where there were some deep tractor ruts from who knows when, but there was no debris. It was a true field that was sown in domestic grains at one point. So as I'm standing on the field, it's the west side and the south end that's most advanced. And the field doesn't have, like last year, we're not seeing early ripening areas that were coming into maturity like in unison. What I'm seeing, I say we, it's me and the Holy Spirit, He bears witness with me. What I am seeing is that in the areas that have the most mature barley, there is still a sprinkling of like worm to soft dough. Soft dough may have a little bit of moisture, but it's not slimy. Worm is squished worm. It's slimy. So there are still a sprinkling of that in the mature barley. I would say 5-ish%. And, I really struggled with, because I would have to take some areas coming up the west side and then some on the south end to make an omer. Again, it wasn't like last year where we had that one big area where I just went through and I was using the sickle to cut, handful after handful. I would probably be cutting areas of like armfuls rather than handfuls. Rather than like I did last year, where I took that whole huge tub of barley in just one location. So I'd be probably cutting it by the armfuls rather than tubfuls. So I'm looking at the barley, and I'm telling myself, this is food. This is a first fruits offering. As food, I'm looking at the barley, and I say, if I don't take a small loss of maybe 5% of the grains, because, we're looking at a cutoff date. Come next Sunday, the wave sheaf had to be in Jerusalem if we're going to start the calendar this month. And I'm starting the calendar this month. So we have a looming cutoff date, and it's time to make a decision. And I'm saying, am I going to take a small loss of these sprinkling of undermature heads of barley and take a omer to Jerusalem and then harvest the rest at wave sheaf day after wave sheaf day, harvest the rest after wave sheaf day, so I can feed my family in the coming year? Or am I going to hold this field to next month, when probably by that time, if we're very fortunate, maybe 30% of the field would be left standing at wave sheaf, when it would be legal to harvest the field? So when I put that together and I weighed this situation, and I, what do you want to call me? Yossi Cohen, which Yossi Cohen wouldn't really have a field, but that's the name we've been using. Levites weren't given land to farm. But if I was this ancient farmer with a wife and 12 children to feed, what benefits my family the most and what meets the requirement of the law? We need an omer. We need to be able to put the sickle to it. And if we lose 5% by harvesting it, just maybe, and even, and there's no guarantee, because the field is, because of the way it's presenting, even if we waited another week, there were some grains in the field, some of those early ones, that were beginning to shatter. So the longer we waited, also there's the risk of shattering. So if I was that farmer, I would go ahead and take that omer amount from that field. That would be my best viable solution to satisfy the law and feed my family. In addition, we know, or I know, that the barley and the wheat and the wild oats actually exited the soil on November 26th. I could see that the little blades of cereal grass were sticking above the earth. November 26th. We are at March 13. The barley's life is not very long. So that's March 13, let's see, February 26th, December 26th is the month, January 26th is 2 months, February 26th is 3 months. So we're basically just giving a rough estimate. We're at 3 months and 15 days that this barley has been hanging out above the soil. Additionally, it was February 2nd when my eyes were first opened to see this barley, and I do believe that day it literally was just the body. The barley head was just exiting the body of the plant. So when we look at the amount of time this barley has existed on the earth for this year, it has reached that point of no return. So in the coming days, it's only going to mature even further, regardless of what the weather's doing around us. And we're having crazy weather. It's supposed to be like 37 degrees here in the Galilee in the coming days. We've had snow on Mount Hermon. We've had sleet in Jerusalem. We've had rain. And still the barley has made the progression, because this is the point of no return that I keep talking about. And the fact that the barley, the ancient wild grain barley that we use for the calendar, doesn't have a 90-day cutoff window. This is why I'm slow to project. I'm quick to report, but I'm also understanding that there is that point of no return in the barley, and we have achieved that point. And again, I walked 4 fields today. This is a partial of the most advanced field. I'm not going to show you all the footage of all the fields I was in. I do make footage. It's a great way to have notes for me to refer back to when I get home. Yeah, I remember, but I also then take a second look at my surroundings as I'm walking. So I always make videos, but I'm not going to provide all of that. This is just a partial of the field that is the most advanced in that most advanced section. In this area, we're getting a lot of likely candidates. You can see how the color of the barley, some of them are actually pretty advanced. That would probably be very brittle if I'm not mistaken. That's pretty brittle. You can see how we're getting almost down to this south end, and it's always just a little bit more advanced than the other areas of the field. Let's check some stuff here. That's still worm. So close. Oh. Look at how the winds knocked everything over the last few days. Everything. Oh, we have oh yeah, I think this is our section. I think this is our section. Look at the color of the grains. Let me check a few. That's definitely got dough in it. Definitely. Just a little bit of water. Let's step over here and grab one of these. That's a nice dough. That's a nice dough. That one pulled right off in my hands. Look at that. See how it's even bending? You see how it bent and broke across the grain? That's a great sign. It's still divisible by the fingernail, but man, that's a great sign right there. And I want mine divisible by the fingernail. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, look at this. Woohoo! Nothing like the 9th hour, is there? Look at this. Oops, I dropped him. Let me get another one. I'll take the top one here. Lots of dough right there. Lots of dough. I am going to go ahead and over and check another couple fields, but I want to finish this field before I go anyplace else. That's still a little wet. Look how dead that is. There's so many heads that are coloring up right now. That one just busted apart in my hands when I pulled it. That's still got a little slime to it. That's the end of the squished worm, beginning of the really more squished worm. still not at the south end yet, so things are looking really super, super good. Good to go. Just a little. Don't know if you can see that little bit of moisture on my finger. He's really at the end of the wet stage. Soft dough. I'm gonna sneeze. Excuse me. So what I'm doing is I'm seeing all these brown ones in here, okay? But then I'm coming here and I'm picking a green one and checking it. End of the worm. Look how far we have come. Do you see? If I cherry pick, watch this. And look how beautiful and red these greens are. Just gorgeous. And they don't show so red on the outside either. But on the inside, that is just before their version of a beeb. I can still cut that with my fingernail, but just barely. And that hardly changes it. Look at it. It didn't change its shape when I rolled it with my finger. Take another one out of there, so you can see better. Cut it. It'll cut barely. Roll it. It still maintains its grain shape. So, I want to tell you what the other inspectors would say about this field. Abib of God would say it is not a field that is Abib and ready to harvest. They are looking for, like we saw in the last video, the last little part of that video, they want something that's undivisible by the fingernail. And I did find several of those in those mature grains. If I would go through and pull them and examine those most mature grains within the general area of the field, I was able to locate those, but they were sprinkled. That is not the condition of the field. So Abib of God, check. They would say no. The same thing with the Devorah's date tree. Because there's not more than just this field available, they would not find what I have located as an acceptable reason to start the calendar. And again, they're looking for a grain that you cannot cut with your fingernail. I believe it would be the same thing for Yoel Halevi, and I'm not sure I understand all of his criteria, but I do think that he's looking for a greater quantity than I'm looking for. Again, if you've been following me, you know that I am looking for the field, which represents the world, the condition of the soil, which represents the hearts of men. I'm looking for that first fruit from the dead, Yeshua, a area in this field, an omer quantity, which is basically like 2.3 liters of grains, as a omer to start the redemption of mankind, or the redemption of the world, the harvesting of that field. And beyond a shadow of a doubt, I could come up with 2.3 liters of dough barley out of this field with a sickle. It would have to be taken from maybe 2 or 3 locations up that west side of the field. Maybe there's enough on the south end alone, but there's definitely enough for me to do that in that field. The other thing that I would be doing is I would probably be waiting until Tuesday the 15th before I did it. I would be waiting till the last possible moment. Why? Because I've got a wife and kids to feed in the coming year, and I want to make sure I've got time to get it to Jerusalem, and I'm allowing that field to be as mature as possible so that there's not a lot of loss in my first fruits, a quantity that I'm harvesting to take to Jerusalem. I want also that grain to be as mature as possible when I present it. But it's going in a basket, according to the command. We were to put it in a basket, take it to the priest, and confess that our father was a wandering Armenian, almost ready to starve. And so that's what I would be doing if I was the farmer that owned this land. And so based on that, I will be keeping Pesach this month and the week of unleavened. So I hope this helps you in your determination. Yah willing, I will go back out on the 15th. And I don't know. We'll see. I'll at least do a video. Maybe I can do a live from there. I don't exactly know what my signal will be from that location, but I will bring, Yah willing, a second report on the 15th, and we'll take a look and see how much it's progressed from where it is today.